Hi everyone, thanks for hanging around till the end of the day. My name's Phil, and this is the Office of Danger.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, a choose-your-own-adventure story. So just to sort of preface this is a social engineering engagement. Social engineering, if no one has done it, is super stressful. So to put that into a little bit of perspective, I am relatively nervous, stood up here talking to you. My heart rate is around 95. This graph shows over the 2 days, anything that is orange means that I was above about 100, or no, above about 75. So 2 days of pure stress. So when you're making your decisions, in your head, try to be like, shit, if I do this wrong, I might go to jail. Or shit, if I do this wrong, I might, fail my job. So, please have that inbuilt stress, if you can, that would be great. My peak over the 2 days was 150. I'm a runner. My running peaks at about 160. So I was genuine heart in my chest stuff for 2 whole days. So, the rules. This is what we're doing. This is an audience-based decision-making game. Each of you should have a blue and yellow card. Does everybody have one? This has gone well. Good job, Rob. So for each decision, there'll be 2 options, and you choose the colour that you want. Hold them up. And for this job that we're doing, it was a 2-day engagement, so you've got 2 chances at completing the aims. And because I sort of wrote this ages ago thinking it might go to America, where they do crazy stuff in the middle of the night, this must be completed during office hours. So that's why we're not lockpicking, breaking windows, climbing in at 3 a.m. Also, on your person, you have a get-out-of-jail-free card. So the target, where are we going? So it's a multi-use office in central London. The client rents out half of the 7th floor and the entirety of the 8th floor. We did some OSINT before we went, and we found out that there are security guards on the ground floor, security guards on the 1st floor in the reception area, security gates to get to the lifts, security doors to gain access to the offices, and there are other users in the building, including like a WeWork, Regus-style shared office. And we also found out the head of IT and some IT staff names within the target organisation. So the scope, this is what you've got to achieve over the 2 days, is access to the 7th floor, access to the 8th floor, a scan of the internal network, and identify any low-hanging fruit on the internal network. Right, day 1. Before we start, I'm going to call Rob up to the front, please. Rob, I need your help.
Yeah, okay.
So that this is in no way biased and I don't take you down a path that I want to take you down, Rob is going to be my independent adjudicator. So for each question, when you all hold up your cards, Rob, if you can tell me which one is the majority,
Okay.
and we'll go with that.
All right.
Don't fuck it up.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Right. The setup, day 1. So OSINT discovered a shared office space within the building. Do you decide to use this? Is it in or out of scope?
It's in scope.
In scope. So you've decided that third-party office is in scope. Do you try and book a legitimate viewing through their head office? Yes or no?
Yeah, you don't need me for this one. You're absolutely booking a viewing.
Booking a viewing,
Yeah.
Perfect. You ring up head office while on the train down because you're really not that organised, and they tell you that someone in the office will be in touch. They do not ring back. So, you get down to London, you made your phone call, no one rang you back. But you have to press on anyway, so it's time to go. You bypass the security on the ground floor. They were super friendly and just said, reception's up there. So you go up there. When you get to reception, they ask, how can I help? So do you pretend to have a booking with the third party to view the shared offices?
Yes.
Yep. So reception rings the reception of the third party. They do not know who you are because no one has confirmed your visit. You explain the whole saga, you elaborate, it takes quite a few minutes. And then after that, they present you with a security pass and tell you to head to the 4th floor via the elevators. It works. You get past the first security gate. This is super exciting. Where do you go? Do you go to the third party or do you go straight up to your client?
Ooh. Client, seemingly.
Client, all right. Which of the client's floors do you want to visit? The 7th floor or the 8th floor?
Okay, hang on. 1, 2. Well, deciding vote.
Got 45 minutes, right?
Well, yeah, we could go around again. 8th, please.
8th. Okay. Right, we head up to the 8th floor. So you exit, and out of the elevators, there is an access-controlled door. You try the door, and your keycard does not work. So no one enters or exits during the 10 minutes you stand there looking like a right bellend. Do you leave or wait a bit longer?
I think we're leaving.
We're leaving.
Yeah, we're leaving.
You gave up. You head down and you decide to go to the pub. Really, you have to work on this because that was not great. So, this is what I did differently, somewhat more successfully. No. So I, similar to you, I decided that the third party was definitely in scope. I did actually ring up the head office while on the train, and they did not ring me back. So I had to blag it at main reception, which took more convincing than you would have thought. They had quite a strict policy. But I got the pass, and I went up to the 4th floor, and I did a tour. Now, I did a 40-minute tour with a shared office that I had absolutely no interest in. It was quite useful. They told me some super good stuff, like there were cycling racks on the ground floor, and where some of the security guards were. But I tried to leave there to go to the stairs so I could then work my way up, and they did not let me do that. I had to go back to the lifts. So I went up to the lifts, and I thought, I'll go to the 7th floor, first one on my target list, why not? Didn't really think about that. Didn't really think that they would have their own reception. I was hoping to just get to an access-controlled door, but there was reception. So I walked out, they buzzed me through, and were like, hi, who are you? I was like, well, shit. Had a chat with them, and what we might do is play the rest of this game. We might do some of this again from further back, because there's quite a cool bit around reception which lets you do decisions. We've got time for this. You can make this up. Right, bear with me 2 seconds. Right. Reroll. Yeah, we do have another day, so it's fine. Right, this time.
We don't, actually. We've got until 5. We haven't got a whole day.
No, yeah, fine, true, yeah, okay. So last time we went to the 8th floor, which was a great idea, and actually should have worked, but for some reason didn't. But this time, if we go to the 7th floor, so you exit the elevator and are buzzed through the door by client reception. Looking around, there's no way to avoid direct interaction with receptionists. You walk as slowly as possible and try to think of a plan. So you decide to be you pretend to be a new starter during COVID, working from home, and this is your first time in the office. What name do you provide to reception? A fake name or your real name? Deciding votes on you, Rob.
Fake name, I think.
Fake name.
We're faking an existing employee.
The receptionist does a really good job and looks you up on Teams. They notice that you're in a call. You act confused and, it must be someone else. Maybe someone's ringing me. I don't know what it is. And they continue to stand there while you continue looking like a plum. After a little while, the receptionist starts to not really believe what you're saying and asks for your line manager's name. Now, you found out they're head of IT. So this is a global insurance firm. When I say head of IT, I mean the global head of IT. Do you change the conversation or give them the name?
Give them the name.
Nice. So you give them the name, and they sort of have a look, and they're still trying to find you. And the receptionist asks you, have you received your mug yet? Now, out of all the questions in the world I was expecting, this was not one of them. You kind of look at them like, what are you talking about? And then you say no. They pass you a branded mug. Do you take it? 100% free stuff, right? Free stuff. Really to take time, yeah. So the receptionist continues to look at you quite strangely. They're still looking up your boss, while you look at your really beautiful branded mug. Glass, little blue band to hold it. It was brilliant. They ask you how you got to the floor and if you had a key card. Do you tell them someone let you up, or do you show them your key card from the 4th floor?
Ooh, show them the key card. Yeah.
Key card. So the receptionist takes your card and states that this is not one of their cards. You go, well, I don't flip a note, it's your building, it's just what I got given. But they're really not starting to believe you. At this point, you remember I said 150 beats per minute heart rate? This was then interacting with reception. So they start to see through your story. They can't get through to the manager and ask for any other contact details. Do you provide the name of your contact or show your get out of jail free card? Name of contact. Nice. So the receptionist rings your client, who appears behind you in reception. They escort you to a meeting room and you have like a nice little initial debrief. Heart rate goes down slightly. You tell them what's happened so far. And you make a plan. Do you suggest that you call it a day or ask for them to take you past reception? Past reception. So your contact agrees to confidently walk you past reception, see if reception says anything. Do you request to be left on the 7th or the 8th floor? You're currently on the 7th, just for memory. 8. So your client, halfway up the stairs, decides that it's not really fair to give you access to the 8th floor. So they leave you halfway up the stairs. So there you are. You follow them up, and it's an access-controlled door. You go back down, and it's an access-controlled door. But luckily for you, the toilets are on the unsecured side. So after 5 minutes, someone goes through to go for a wee. So you grab the door and let yourself in. You're on the 8th floor. You sit at a spare desk without being challenged, partly thanks to your nice shiny mug that you took earlier. After an hour, people start leaving for the day. Do you stay and scan, do some work, or do you decide to leave with them? And map away. You do some actual real work for the day. Then once you're done, you head back down to the lifts to go to reception. Now, again, what you weren't expecting were the security gates on the way out to ask for your pass. And your 4th floor pass has been disabled because reception knew you weren't meant to be there. So you're stuck between elevators and a speed gate. Do you wait for help or athletically jump the gate?
Oh, I want to see Dan Card athletically jump a gate. Let's jump the gate.
You start to climb over the gate. You've got your laptop. You've got your coat. Your adrenaline's buggered. You do not do this elegantly. A security guard sees you and comes over. So you have to explain the whole story. Your pass didn't work. And they escort you to the meeting room. They're really sketchy. And you decide that before anything goes worse, you give them your get out of jail letter. And they escort you out of the building. End of day 1, take 2. So you go for another pint. So, thank you for letting me do that. But that's kind of the route that I took. So I went up to the 7th floor, spoke to reception. And they gave me this mug, which I've got at home, which is brilliant, well excited. When I gave the head of IT's name, I thought, they are never going to ring the global head of IT about some guy in reception. She did. He was on holiday. I was so lucky. So she then still didn't see through my whole gambit. So we ended up calling the client. Now, she rang the client, and I hear a mobile phone go off about where that door is behind me. My client had been stood in reception watching the entire thing. It was horrendous. But yeah, we had a little chat and we thought, let's walk past reception, see what happens. And he actually genuinely left me on the stairs as well, which, what a dick. Did not like that guy. So yeah, but managed to tailgate onto the 8th. Below, you sat at a desk. I stayed, did some scans, and I genuinely got stuck between the lifts. Unlike Dan, I didn't decide to try and vault them. I waited, and a very nice lady came down. I was on her way out, and I was like, my card doesn't work, and she beat me through. So I then legged it, chucking my card sort of near the door, and just legged it out of the building, and had a really good pint. So, you then slept super badly because you're still really nervous. So day 2. You go back in. After having a chat with the client, you realise that actually you've got a WeWork style rent an office. So there's no point trying to bypass reception again, because as an attacker, I will just rent the office for a month, get a genuine pass and be allowed in every day. So we decide that we'll get a pass from reception so that I can at least do a little bit more. However, when I ring the client to kind of sort this out, turns out his child was ill, so he was at home. So the one person in this high security office building in central London who knew I was there wasn't there. So I then have to try and explain this to reception. Now reception are like, who the hell are you? Like, what are you talking about? We end up having to call the client. It goes on. I think it was about an hour and a quarter of me just trying to get past reception in a legitimate way. It would have been easier to have blagged it for a second day in a row. But after, I said 20 minutes here, it was definitely longer. But where do you head? You've been given a pass, do you go towards the stairs or the elevators?
We're going to go up the elevator.
Going to go up the elevator. Yeah. All right. So your pass works, you're fine. You get to the elevator waiting area. Which floor do you go to? The 7th floor or the 8th floor? 8th. So you sort of hover around. I mean, an elevator waiting area is quite a good place to loiter. And it had a nice little screen where people push buttons before they got to the lifts. So it came up above the lifts which floor it was going to, which was really handy. So I stood there. You're all doing this. You stood there until someone pressed the 8th floor. So you follow them into the lift. And then as the polite person you are when you get there, you let them out so that they can go and beat their card and go in. However, they walk out the lift and then they stop and they go and they cannot find their pass. They don't know where it is. Do you get back in the lift or do you also wait with them?
I reckon it's going to get you in trouble, but wait.
So you wait. You have to act along as well. Where's your pass? You take off your backpack, you kneel down, you pull out your laptop, you pull out your whatever, trying not to show off you're a hacker, no stickers allowed. And eventually they find their pass and open the door. You quickly bundle everything back in your bag and grab the door and you follow them in. Brilliant. We're in the 8th floor. Back in the 8th floor, should I say, after doing so well on day 1. So where do you go? Do you take a seat or do you do a lap to kind of get the lay of the land?
Do a lap.
You do a lap.
Get coffee.
You do a lap at your office. No, in the view out the window, genuine view. If you can't see that right at the back, that is St. Paul's and other London landmarks.
I think I've just guessed the fly now.
You crack on.
I know that.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Awkward. This is being recorded. No, it's fun. So you do an entire lap, you stop, you take a picture of the view. Nobody really cares that you're there. What do you do next? Do you head down to the 7th floor or do you take a seat on this floor?
Take a seat.
So you find an empty seat, you connect to the network, and literally no one notices you. After about 10 minutes, you overhear a team sat next to you discussing a person who got a pass at main reception but didn't arrive at the office reception. You quite quickly realise that this can only be you. And you hear that the security guards are doing a floor-by-floor sweep of the building for someone. Do you stay where you are or do you find a meeting room to hide in?
Hi, Phil!
So you kind of do another lap of the floor, you vaguely know your way around, and you find an empty meeting room. You sit there, you unplug the VoIP phone, brilliant, new network, you can start scanning. And you'll see actually in the picture the little cup that meant that I was meant to be there. This meeting room actually isn't a meeting room. This is an executive's office. They return from a meeting and go, who are you? And I'd love to tell you the exact conversation, because he said, who are you? And so I looked at him and went, who are you? And with the door open, he genuinely pointed to the name on the door and said, this is me. I was like, right, okay. So you kind of politely make conversation. And while you're doing that, do you try and plug the VoIP phone back in, or do you just awkwardly pack up and leave?
GTFO.
So while you're leaving the office, you've sort of built up a bit of a rapport. And he informs you that if you're looking for a nice meeting room to hang out in, there are loads on the 7th floor that are empty. So you decide this is probably the best place to go now. So you exit the 8th floor and you head down to the 7th. Now, there are 2 access control doors to access this floor because they only own half the floor. So after about 15 minutes, no one has gone in or out of the first door. So just to paint the picture, it's a door, then it's a corridor with another set of doors. So you're trying to just get through the first one. So do you head back to the first floor, knowing that you've completed your tasks up there, or do you wait?
Wait for it.
After about 10 minutes, and in these 10 minutes, you sort of awkwardly walk up and down the stairs because you know there's CCTV. So you're like, if they glance, there's someone not just weirdly standing there, be on your phone for a little while. Someone enters the 7th floor. You manage to grab the door and you tailgate them in. But as you follow them in, they sort of slow down, turn around and give you that look that you all know of, I'm about to ask you a question. So do you continue to follow them, or do you go the other way to the other office door?
I think that's where we go.
So you turn your head towards the other office door. The person, as it turns out, was going to the office you wanted to go to. So they go in, but you can't catch the door. They didn't open it enough. They were being pretty security conscious. So now you're stood in a tiny vestibule. You've got 3 doors. 2 are locked and 1 takes you back to the stairs. So you stand there, you again make a phone call, you we against the wall, whatever people do in vestibules. But you wait until a member of the catering staff comes through and heads towards the client door. You manage to grab the door and you let yourself in. The executive was right. There are multiple empty offices. You sit in one, and for the rest of the day, you do all your scanning, and literally no one notices you're there. So you're done. You've hit all your targets. You've done your scanning. You've hit both floors. You've let yourself in everywhere. You ring the client. You provide a debrief of your findings throughout the 2 days. The client then asks if you can debrief both receptions and just kind of make sure that everybody is aware and knows what went on. This was really interesting because the person who I dealt with on the reception on day 1 had gone on lunch break. So I said, oh, can I speak to so-and-so? And they were like, yeah, they're on their break. They'll be back in like half an hour. I was like, right, I kind of really need to speak to them. So I ended up sitting in their reception again for half an hour waiting for this person to come back. But you debrief them and there's no issue. And you're done. Success. You exit the building after you've debriefed every single person, and you head to the pub for what was one of the best pints you've had in your life. So my day 2 was actually very similar to yours. So I managed to get the pass from reception after a lot of toing and froing with reception and the client on the phone. I actually asked to go to the stairs so that I could then sort of tailgate my way in. And they told me that you would need to be escorted by a security guard. And I realized that would probably be really bad news. So I ended up being like, no, it's fine. My fear of lifts, which is the excuse I gave for wanting to take the stairs, magically fixed itself. And I managed to get to the lifts. But again, went up to the 8th floor. And the person did genuinely struggle to find their card, so I got my bag down, got everything out. It was really awkward. Sat down next to the commercial services team and heard them discussing me. as it turned out, in the end, they ended up ringing my client because main reception remembered that they spoke to them. And he was like, yeah, please don't send security. So I was never going to get rumbled. But for a good portion of the day, I did think security were really doing a sweep of the building. So instead of sitting there next to them, I did go and get a coffee and have breakfast in their breakout room. So I went into the meeting room, as you did, unplugged the phone. The executive I spoke about was the global head of finance. Turns out he was really important. He had literally nothing in his office. You know, like a circular table, 4 chairs a bit like that, and a phone. That was it. I was like, how do you live like this? But fine. I did not plug the phone back in. I think I didn't tell anyone. I completely forgot. So I hope for days he actually got some work done because he didn't get interrupted. Again, 20 minutes waiting to tailgate someone into the 7th floor. And the actual thing happened of the guy looked at me and I like darted to the other door, pretending to go in there. And it felt forever stood in this vestibule until it was a catering lady with a trolley. So I could be super helpful holding the door for her. But yeah, that was really bad. But once I was in there, like nobody cared at all. Managed to debrief the client on both reception teams, which went really well. And actually the receptionist was quite receptive, pun actually quite intended, about it all, because they were super confused by the interaction I had with them on the first day. They were like, I don't understand who you were. So this actually, and then they just kept asking. They got really fixated on if they passed or failed. So for the rest of the conversation, they were like, but did we pass? I was like, I don't pass or fail you. It's like, but did we pass? And in the end, I was like, yes. Why not? Make him feel better. So that was fine. But what's really interesting, and I don't know if people do social engineering here, but I like to think of social engineering as 3 zones. There's like a green zone of outside the building, which is anybody, public. Like you're never going to be questioned for standing outside a building because anyone can stand there. There's then sort of, this should be the other way around actually, but there should be like the yellow zone of you're at reception. You kind of should be there, but is the place you're most likely to get caught. Then once you're past reception, you're in. People expect you to be there. They trust naturally that you should. You've got past the barriers, so you're there. People holding doors, leaving lanyards, leaving their computers unlocked, all because everybody there should be trusted. So the further in you get, actually the easier it is, which is almost the opposite of what you might think. So in summary, we've done all our questions. Thank you very much for playing. Social engineering is terrifying for anyone who does it. You do have heart in your hands. You are every decision you go, and then you sort of question them for quite a lot of days later. One of the other big things with it is I kind of I don't want to ruin anyone's day. So although I'll try and trick people to let me do things, I like to do it in a nice way so they feel better for meeting me. Because I think if you start manipulating people so that they are detrimental once you trick them, or you trick them in such a way it affects their day, it's just kind of, you have that lingering and you have that feeling with you afterwards. But if you're bored of anything, if you do, I sit at a computer all day, I just want to go and do something, see if you can sign up for social engineering. It's great fun. I think you'll enjoy it, or you'll hate it, but either way, you get a day out. Sometimes it works out really well, such as this one. That was my breakfast in their breakout area. Nice coffee, croissant, and view of St. Paul's. Other times it's less nice. This is an abandoned laser quest outside of Paris, France, in a shopping centre that they asked me to social engineer my way into the shopping centre, so like vacant shops, into the management floors. So I ended up trying every door, and this door led to many more doors, and then we ended up in an abandoned laser quest, which I think was maybe the most terrifying thing I was. Either that, or when they caught me and escorted me to the control room, and my client wasn't there yet, and I didn't speak French and they didn't speak English. So I was trying to explain who I was over Google Translate. And they very almost rang the police. That was really bad. But yeah, sometimes it's great. Sometimes maybe not. Yeah, thank you all very much for playing. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you kind of got an insight of what type of decisions you get to make when you do social engineering, and hopefully someone will give it a go off the back of this.
Awesome, Phil. Thank you very much. That's great. We've got some time for a couple of questions. If anyone has any questions, I'll run around with the mic.
Yep.
If not, you can give your yellow cards, your blue cards to Vanessa on your way out, or just leave them on your chair, and I will just think bad thoughts about you.
Thanks. Yep. Great talk again. Did you have you get out of jail free letter on you so that you know, if it did all go pear-shaped, at least you weren't going to get arrested and carted off to Bow Street or wherever?
Yeah, so I actually had two. So I had one that was inside my suit jacket and one that was in my trouser pockets, solely for if I took off my suit jacket to hang it up somewhere, because you get nervous, you get sweaty, sometimes you're just like, you've still got another one on you. A good friend of mine, Chris Pritchard, who does a lot of social engineering, told me that the worst place to have it, especially if you're doing an airport, is in your jacket pocket, because when you've got police with guns and you go in to get your letter, it's really bad. So yeah, have at least one, definitely at least one in your pocket. Sorry? I much prefer being able to give an actual letter and they can then take it away, whereas I don't really want them to go away with my phone. So yeah.
Hi, thanks for the talk. In a world where sort of phishing and network exploits and that sort of thing result in the most ransomwares and sort of data theft, what sort of place would you say a kindly Englishman breaking into the finance manager's office fits in a company's threat model?
It's a really good question. And it very much depends on who your attacker is. So if you're sort of someone who your attacker is a nation state, doing this sort of thing probably isn't that beneficial, because if you're nation state with time, money, you're just going to get someone employed and then they get a laptop and they get access. So it's much more for sort of maybe smaller people who have sensitive physical documents. So maybe like an engineering firm that have printouts of designs or that type of, or maybe like, a bank with money. That type of places where there is physical assets as opposed to getting everything digitally.
Hi, a great talk, really enjoyed it. Have you ever, apart from the lovely mug, have you ever taken anything or stolen anything on one of your engagements?
So, no,
Please admit to crime now.
I'm trying to think, I think I got a pen from the French shopping centre, but that was solely because I needed it and then put it in my bag just naturally. I'm not really one. Someone that I did work with, he made sure he does a lot of this, and he liked a trophy. After everyone, he would ask, "Can I please take this home?" Whereas I got so much shit in my house. I don't. So no, I've got the mug and that's and the pennant, but it's not a thing that I'm bothered about.
What recommendation did you give to this client of the 7th and 8th floor?
Really good question. So one of the big things that they hadn't thought about in their threat model was the fact that their office was in a shared unit with a shared office that anybody could hire. So that was sort of something that they just hadn't thought about. The fact that the card for that didn't work in their office, they were really happy about. They were really happy that reception stopped me and did their job very diligently. They were excellent. But then a lot of the things they couldn't really do anything about. So the toilets being on the unsecured side of the door, they can't redesign the office. That's just how it is. So it was much sort of smaller things of attitude towards it. So is the person wearing a pass? Shut the door behind you, make sure no one follows you through. If there's someone who looks a bit weird, make sure you ask them, are you meant to be here? So all those sorts of things which might help, might not, but the fundamental issues that got me in were kind of unfixable. So yeah, so it was quite an interesting one. I think we then just sold them some awareness training, because that's what we do as upsell. And I'm sure they were happy with that.
How did you record what you were doing? Did you have like your phone recording audio in your pocket or camera, or do you just remember it and write it down later?
So I had my phone. I took quite a lot of photos. So where I saw things like a door that was propped open that should have been shut with an access card, like I'll snap a photo of that. And then whenever I sat at a desk or had a little bit of downtime, I'd sort of just memory jot down in a like a notepad all of the things that I'd done, and I tried to do it. Almost this presentation was created through the notes that I had, because it was that sort of step by step, so that I could tell them and then sort of flagging issues. I don't know what the legal side of recording all the time would be. I also wouldn't want that recording, because not in case I do something wrong, but I'd feel like I should watch it back and then it would be really cringy. So just not having that is best. But yeah, just little and often regular note taking whenever and even it, quite often in social engineering, if you watch any of the talks, they will all mention going to the toilet a lot because of getting your heart rate down, trying to calm yourself down. So you sit on the toilet, you get your laptop out, you write down the last few things that you did. So it was that kind of note taking.
One last question, and then we can go to the pub.
Yeah, what kind of research do you do to try and fit in? Like, they wear Targus backpacks and have HP laptops. Do you try to get that kind of?
So that is a really good question. So we try and do quite a lot of OSINT, so of the building itself. So again, this shared office really helped because it had kind of a floor plan, and it listed the security features that there were speed gates. So that was really handy. We then do OSINT on like LinkedIn for the company to get names and pictures and kind of try to get an idea of dress code from there. Ideally, on the very first day of this engagement, I spent about 2 hours sat over the road watching people going in and out to see, because what I didn't know, I knew there was security on the ground floor, but I didn't know what they did. So realizing people walked in and just walked past them meant if I could confidently do that, it would be fine. So it's all those things. I mean, you then also think of the type of company. So is it a tech company where people are going to be wearing jeans and t-shirts, or this was a insurance company? So I knew they'd be a bit smarter. Now, luckily, I'm a very generic white looking male, so I kind of fit in quite well. If I put on a suit, I fit in with London types. And that helps quite a lot. I'm quite forgettable. So people will meet me and then 10 minutes later I'll be like, who are you? Which is great, weirdly. But yeah, so it's trying to find out as much as you can. But it's very rare that, because I don't live in London, I didn't really want to spend a day going down to watch the building to go back again. But I know some other people won't do it without having done that. So yeah, you try and get a bit like any kind of pen test or anything, you try and get as much information as you can before the day.
Generic white male whose name I've forgotten, thank you again for your presentation. It's been awesome, thank you.